Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings, the card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Grant Thompson, just along for the ride.
And I'm Ted Bannock, and I love talking about cards.
And today we have with us a very special guest. So I would hazard a guess that I would call this guy the glue to the Gray Company. You know, there was a lot of strong opinions going around there, and Derek is kind of the glue that held that Gray Company, the theme of the Gray Company, together for what he was doing for it. So Derek Kamal is with us, and Derek, thank you for joining us, taking a little bit of time out of your Sunday night here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I say the glue because, you know, as somebody who listened to the Gray Company, you know, through the whole thing, it's like you were the moderator, and Dan and Ian and Matthew. Sorry, brain fart for a second. Like they all had differing opinions, but you kind of kept the show going and tried to keep going. How did that end up working out for you? Like, how did that all come together? You know.
I felt a certain responsibility to keep things going because I was the one who kind of initiated the whole thing. We, through, if I remember correctly, the Cardboard of the Rings Facebook page, I put a post just asking if anybody wanted to play an Octagon, and Matthew, Ian, and Dan replied, and so we started playing together from there. And we'd play, but we mostly just talked about the game. And so at a certain point, I emailed them and I was like, why don't we just start recording these conversations? We'll make a podcast. And they agreed. And so I felt a certain amount of responsibility to be the director or the moderator, as you say. But also I fell into that position because honestly, I think I was and am the least knowledgeable about the game. I've always been a casual player. And so assuming the role of the host felt right because then I could pose questions.
Yeah, being the host of a podcast, you don't need to know anything about the game. Trust me.
Exactly.
You just have to surround yourself with people who do.
But honestly, that's the way it was, especially as the game went on and I was playing less. You know, especially Ian and Dan. You know, you just kind of the question is kind of like the reel, and they just go for it like piranhas, and then it's my job to kind of reel it back in. Which mainly I fell into that role because I hate long podcasts. I don't hate them. I just don't have time for long podcasts. Right. And I was like, Cardboard of the Rings is like the 6-hour episodes. We're going to be like the 1 hour, hour and a half tops. Right. And so that was kind of the goal I set. And so that's why I kind of, you know, we'll get the lasso out and try to corral everybody.
Yeah. And I mean, you guys were, and I say were because maybe it hasn't hit yet, but you guys just had your last episode maybe
yes.
3 or 4 weeks ago. Yeah. And so you guys were probably the very somebody was it Bjorn that said that, you know, the NPR to the shock jocks, was that kind of the, you know, like that, yeah. You know, like that's to me, that's like you guys really were focused on the game and on the lore, and you spent a lot of time really developing that. And I mean, you were probably the gold standard for kind of relating all of those things into one place, and I appreciated that immensely.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, how did you get into the game?
I love the Lord of the Rings, and way back when, it's funny because we're going to be dating myself quite a lot because the card we're going to talk about came out 6 years ago. But also, when I really launched into tabletop gaming was when Will Wheaton had his YouTube series Tabletop. Okay. And it was just like a bomb went off in my brain, like, oh my gosh, I could be playing these games. And so I went down the rabbit hole of tabletop games, and I think I just found it on maybe Board Game Geek or something like that. And so I bought the core set. I got super amped up about it. And honestly, the progression series, Mitch, is what taught me how to play. Because I started don't tell anybody, but I started downloading stuff on Octagon before I bought the physical cards. Okay. And so watching Mitch play on Octagon was really how I learned how to play. And the art and the fact that they were very respectful to the lore and that I could collect it was really what drew me in, even though I did feel, and honestly to this day still feel, kind of overwhelmed by the game. Right. The love that's put into it and the adventures that you can have kind of overrode that. So, and then once I got involved in the online community a little bit, that I was hooked.
Yeah. I can imagine that that's crazy. Now, what the great companies kind of has set sail for Valinor, but that doesn't mean that you guys individually are not part of the community still, right? I mean, it was just time to wrap up the Grey Company, right? It wasn't like, you made a conscious decision to say, I'm done with Lord of the Rings, or, and I don't want you to necessarily speak for Matthew or Dan or Ian, but I know that, people get busy, but that doesn't mean you're out of the game. Is that true?
For the most part, yes. I'm honestly not playing much tabletop these days, for a lot of reasons. But I'm able to be more easily able to be involved in the digital game, what's now being branded as the Lord of the Rings adventure card game.
Yep.
And so because it's just less of a time sink, and honestly, a big part of the reason why I started pulling the reins and tapping the brakes on tabletop is card management. So if I had like an intern who could manage my cards and build decks for me, I'd still be playing a lot of tabletop.
Intern, reorganize my binder alphabetically. My spear.
Have it to me by the morning.
Yeah.
So if I had that Sherpa in my life, I could do that. But honestly, that's the number one reason why I don't play much tabletop at all, is because just card management.
Don't you have young kids, or I don't know what your family situation is if you have one.
I have two little girls. I have my. I don't know if this is a Card Talk exclusive, but I'm actually the world's best dad.
No, you can't be, because I am.
Wait, what? You saying this is not an official thing? So I have two little girls, but like the thought of putting those binders, with $1,000 worth of cards in front of them is nightmarish.
Right. Totally understand that.
So anyway, because of that, I'm focusing more on the adventure card game now. It's easier to get into. I got buddies I play with online. The community is still kind of in its fledgling state, so it's kind of a ground level that I can get in on, and I still get to keep the Lord of the Rings flavor.
Any podcasts in your future about the FFI? The
man, if I had the time, if I could just retire and do podcasts, I would totally do it.
Yeah.
Just because
you have a big broad. You have a whole breadth of things that you're interested in. Like, you're not just a guy, right? And I mean, that's everybody, right? Is that you're not just interested in Lord of the Rings and raising your kids and living life. It's like you have a million other things. You probably have a job to feed everybody.
Yep. Fortunately, yeah.
Right? Yeah. But I'm not going to speak for Ted or for what's his name over there in England, but. I'm just kidding, Greg. No, I'm not going to speak for either of those guys, but I just know that I always look forward to when an episode of Great Company came out, and it's one of those things that every month I'm going to be a little sad about, that I'm not going to be able to listen to you guys talk about.
Well, thank you, and really thank you on behalf of all of us. Thank you for the little toast you did in your episode not too long ago. As soon as I heard that, I reached out to Dieter and told him thank you, because I was like, I'm watching YouTube, I'm getting misty. I thought this was just a podcast about games.
Yeah.
And I'm like weeping.
So, well, enough crying, right? There's no crying in Lord of the Rings.
Not all tears are evil.
Right? That's right.
Not
Good
all,
one.
Right. Should we get into the card that you were talking about?
Well, I think we should.
Okay, so just so everybody knows, whenever we have a guest episode on, especially the illustrious Derek Kamal, we offer them to come on the show and talk to us about any card in the card pool that they want, as long as we haven't done it on an episode. And so, Derek, I'll let you take it from there. Which card did you decide to pick?
I went deep into the vault and I chose small targets.
Okay, so... I mean, we are a video podcast, but can you read down through the card? Do you have it open? Or
I can try, yeah. Small Target is a 1-cost spirit event. It is a response. After a Hobbit hero you control exhausts to defend an attack, choose another enemy engaged with you and reveal the attacking enemy's shadow card. If that shadow card has no shadow effect, resolve this enemy's attack against the chosen enemy. If that shadow card has a shadow effect, resolve this attack. Just look it up and help you on.
Basically, if there is a shadow effect, it does a thing, and if it's no wait.
If there's no shadow effect, that enemy deals this damage to another enemy engaged.
It hits the other thing. If it does, if there is yeah. Okay,
yeah.
So
and I just picked this one because everybody's drawn to the same conclusion. This is like a totally amazing, cool trick you can do. It's just completely impractical. But it's just such a cool card. I've always go in for Hobbit cards, and the fact that the art also does a really good job of conveying the vibe that the designer was going for, and that you're just a Hobbit diving out of the way so that the orc actually smashes his friend. So yeah, totally impractical, but just a really, really cool card.
Yeah, I've actually tried to play this a couple of times, and I found that I don't know. I found that, like you said, it's kind of I don't know if you said. Did you say impractical? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah. It just seems to be, it seems to be fun to play, but maybe not the best to play. So,
okay, because you have, on the one hand, we want to win these games, but on the other hand, it's a game, and we want to do cool, fun stuff. So there are, you can be like me and go on RingsDB and look up which decks have implemented this card. And it's like, there's a lot of cards that go into your deck just to make this thing work. But when you pull it off, it's just such a champion moment. Yeah. Even if you lose the quest.
Right. What do you other guys think about this card?
Yeah, small target. It's well, Derek, you kind of said it. It's a little hard to pull off, but it's one of those cards where you're like, I just want to do it. I just want to have it happen.
That's right.
And I haven't had a chance to put it on the table because I haven't really thought of the best way to get it to work. Mm-hmm. So my question for you is, what hero lineup are you using when you do try to put this card on the table?
If you can go all Hobbits, that's best. Any kind of combination of Hobbits you can make it happen. But because of the Silver Lamp, you kind of want Spirit. So, in my opinion, and kind of I would say the consensus is that Frodo is the best, because even if you do end up taking the hit because you don't get what you need from the Shadow card, his ability will let you kind of absorb the hits and crank your threat up. Mm-hmm. So Frodo's kind of the way to go. So this is his ability. He hits the Hobbit's trait. He gives you access to the Silver Lamp, which I guess y'all look it up anyway. But Silver Lamp, as long as that character is ready, you deal the Shadow cards face up, so you can actually see what's going on, and if you even have a chance. So I like Frodo, but I also like to be thematic. So I think any Hobbit, as long as you get some Spirit in there.
Fatty Bulger.
That is one thing I'll say is this, at least in the adventure card game, the digital game, Fatty gets a new lease on life because he he isn't completely terrible.
When Electron John from Cardboard of the Rings came on our show, he decided to do Fatty Bulger. Yeah, so we spent the Fatty episode, and then I guess as a carryover, it came on to Cardboard of the Rings, and it was like Fatty is basically a treachery. Like that's it's like a player card treachery. So, what do you think, Grant?
It is definitely unique. I haven't played it at all, but I have seen a few decks run it. Mr. Underhill made a deck, My Little Utak. You can find it on YouTube. I just pulled it up. He done some phenomenal work with Chieftain Utak taking out enemies. It was hilarious. But it's one of those cards that is definitely either it works or it's going to fail dramatically.
Some poor little Hobbit's going to get smashed. But I'm glad you brought up that Uftak deck, because that's another thing you have to consider when you use this card is the enemy has to have enough attack power to actually make it count when it hits its the other enemy. Right. And so, like you said, Uftak gets a nice boost. So if you build him up and then he ends up smashing one of his cohorts, it's a nice, satisfying feeling.
I mean, that goes to like next level deck building. If you're trying to think of, well, okay, Uftak is in this encounter deck, and now I'm going to make him, my bro. All of a
coming
sudden,
for you.
Yeah, right. Like, wow, like that's like Chris Stanford level deck building right there. Whoa. I mean, you particularly enjoy Hobbits. Is this something that I like? Are you a Hobbit player, or is that?
Yeah. I love the Hobbits because, as you probably gathered listening to the Great Company, I'm definitely a theme player. And the Hobbits are, there's a lot that's unique to Middle Earth, but to me, the Hobbits are the most recognizable and probably the most unique. And so if I'm going to play a Lord of the Rings game, I'm probably going to play the Hobbit. I just got Journeys in Middle Earth, and I'm playing almost strictly as Bilbo. And so I like that. And then the other archetype I like a lot that I could never quite make work is the Scout archetype. So I like those kind of speedy, secrety type decks. And so besides thematically being appealing, the Hobbits also appeal to the sneaky side that I like.
Is that why you ended the Great Company and your Patreons were the Hobbitry in arms? Is that like
yeah, man? the mounts it took army. That's right.
I wish I interviewed you like 4 years ago. It would have been a lot. I would have. I don't know. It's
had more
to
talk about.
Yeah, long time coming here. I just I put a lot together here. The just in the 15 minutes we've been talking.
Yeah, you got a whole personality profile now.
Yeah, right.
Everything I like. Yeah.
Ted, you've been kind of quiet. What do you think of small target?
Yeah, it's I really want to try to make it work, and I think the best way to just go off, Derek, is what you said, is comboing it. Silver Lamp is like the obvious combo, right? Because it gives you visibility to the enemy shadow cards, and it's also in Sphere, being Spirit. And if you're playing Hobbits, you could even double down. If you're playing a combination, I suppose, of Lore and Spirit Hobbits, you could also have Dark Knowledge in your deck. Which would also let you take a peek at shadow cards. And then that'll give you access to Fast Hitch, so you can then ready your Hobbits to do double actions. So there's a lot of supporting cards to go around small target. And again, if it goes off, I imagine it being immensely satisfying when you're like, this troll swings for 6 and kills this goblin. Like, he's dead.
Yeah. And you also have to think through, we talked about planning it specifically for Uftak. You do have to kind of think like that, because you can't just keep recycling this card to kill every single enemy you come across. If you're playing Hobbits, you're going for kind of speed and secrecy. So maybe you can blast through the quest and then just have, a small target set up in case you do come across something nasty.
I suppose the trick is you always have to have 2 enemies. Yeah. If you have to actually leave an enemy in front of you. So if anything, I wonder if it would go well with a Dunedain archetype. If you have something where you are leaving an enemy engaged with you. You make kind of Dunedain and Hobbits, which is kind of a natural thematic pairing too, right? The Dunedain's protecting the borders of the Shire.
I saw Halbarad in some of these small target decks on Rings DB, and I thought that was a good choice.
Oh, yeah, because then you get his ancillary ability of not exhausting the quest. And I do. I really want to put it on the table, and I just haven't figured out how. But I think
it's tough. Because there's other cards there's Good Harvest, which lets you, or not Good Harvest, but what's the one? Something Peace. Hold on a second.
Peace.
Somebody doggone cards. A Watchful Peace. Which lets you kind of recycle cards. What's on top of the deck, or use the Palantir to scry.
Oh my gosh, you've been talking to Ian too much. I'm going to use the Palantir.
That's why it's kind of crazy to talk about this, is because this card is 6 years old. Right. And so we kind of have to go on this deep dive to think about all the other cards that people have tried to work with it. So
when it came out, it was much harder to play. I remember when it came out, I was like, again, it's a cool effect, but how am I going to get this to trigger? And now, since then, we've had, triple the amount of Hobbit heroes comes out. Way more ways to scry the encounter deck to see shadow cards and so if you put a couple of those tricks in your deck, you could really get it to work, I think, to great effect.
I feel like this card shouldn't be a card that works multiplayer, but I feel like it's all because it's Hobbits, you'll want it to be multiplayer. I don't know, because your Hobbits are kind of naturally squishy, so you kind of want to have somebody else to help buffing those Hobbits, maybe, but then you also want those players engaged with you. So I don't know, how does it scale? What's the feeling for scaling up to 2, 3, 4 players, or epic multiplayer mode, which I've never played, by the way, and I can't wait to get to Con of the Rings to try to play some epic multiplayer stuff.
Oh yeah,
but
that's on my to-do list.
Yeah, absolutely. So how does it scale?
I've never. I was gonna say I've never tried it. I don't think I've ever tried it except solo, but I did come across one deck that you guys have probably seen too. It's a 4-deck fellowship, and the defense deck includes Frodo and small target. So I didn't give it enough of a critical eye to say definitively what I think about it. But somebody's out there trying to make it happen, so that's positive.
Right. I feel like this is like a solo card. Like you have to build your deck specifically just to make sure that this comes off. But it can be epic when it comes off. And now you can actually, I don't know, you can use Reforged to pull out some of the, like if the Silver Lamp somehow there's a lot of attachment hate out there and things like that. You know, like Reforged helps. And then what's the record that's in
the Spirit book.
Yeah, the Spirit record, whatever,
Yeah.
Scroll of the Silver or whatever.
Well, you can also recur it with Dwarven
Tomb and stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Grant. Yeah. So Spirit has that natural sort of recursion. So out of all the spears, it's easiest to probably pick it up and get multiple uses out of it than any other spear it might belong into.
Yeah, and I think that this is, well, I guess we alluded to it. It's not something you're going to get out turn 1 or turn 2. You need to set it up and you need to get it going, and so it's like maybe a way to mid game, to get going really well.
But you could always take the gamble, right? Like first turn, if you're like, well, there's 2 enemies and I'm going to have to take one undefended anyway, and I'm going to lose. So you could always just chance a small target, right? Just risk the shadow card. And just be like, well, the game's over. It's either over or going. Like,
right. Yeah. It's either over this round or over next round. I don't know.
Have you ever done it, Derek, blind? Have you just been like, I don't know what the shadow card is, but I'm going to small target this?
One time, I can't remember the quest. I think it was the following cycle. So the oh, come on, brain. Anyway, but I remember a very distinct memory because it was such an amazing thing where I was sitting at the table up in like guest room, just playing with this. It was Bilbo, Frodo, and somebody else, and just one time I got these 2 orcs to smash each other, and it was like I could retire at that point.
Yeah, you're like, yes,
I'm done.
Victory or achievement unlocked, right?
Yeah.
Like in an honest, in an honest moment, how often do you really put this card in a deck?
Oh, no, it's kind of like you guys are saying. It's just for that card. It's just to make it happen. Like although if you're playing to win, it's kind of in a way it's kind of a dead card.
Yeah, I actually, when it first came out, and I didn't start collecting right away, or I didn't start playing the game right away. It came out. It was 2014, so whenever that was. But when I got this card as part of my collection, I was like, great, Spirit Frodo, and I'm going to do the same things that you did. I didn't have whatever, and so it ends up sticking in the binder for the most time.
Yeah. Dark knowledge is an option, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. And people have made the argument that it's feint is a sure thing, but if this pulls off, it's almost like a double feint.
Yeah.
So
right, because
it's just very dicey.
It could turn the tide of a game.
Yeah,
absolutely. So I'm very encouraged to give it a try.
Yeah, and just for the clarification, it was Map of Inaril.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Nope.
Scroll of Isildur is the lore version.
Yep.
Well, I mean, we could sit here for the next 4 hours and talk about small target, right, Derek?
Talk about all the different ways you could barely make it work.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think one of the reasons why Ted came on the show originally was because, I mean, he strongly believes that every card has a place in the card pool, and so, I think it's important for everybody to see, hey, there's a card out there that, it doesn't look like something you can use, but maybe you can use it, and maybe it's something that we can build with and things like that. But
and you just might have fun doing it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, Derek, I don't know if you know how we try to end these shows, but what we do is we ring the cards on a scale from 1 to 10. So we have a highly scientific yet arbitrary system where we say, hey, card is either 1, which is the best card in the game, or a 10, the worst card in the game. And since you're our guest, we'll let you choose. Do you want to go first, second, third, or fourth? Now that we have Ted with us, there's a lot of us ringing this card.
I'll go ahead and pull the trigger.
Okay.
And then we'll see what you guys think.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with a 6.
Okay. Is there any
6.
particular? Why? Just real quick.
Because it's not a 10 because it's not completely useless.
It's not Brock Iron Fist.
It's not Brock Iron Fist, but you can't go above a 5 because it has so many requirements. So I think 6 seems fair.
Okay.
Maybe 7. Let's go with 6.
6, maybe 7. Grant keeps all the spreadsheets data. So Grant, can you put like a 6M7 in there? 6 maybe 7 at the
6.4.
Right. Grant, what do you think of Small Target?
I'm going to give it an 8.
An 8. That's the hammer blow.
It's not super viable. It's a good little gimmick card. It doesn't always work, and I can see the appeal for using it, but it's just not for me. So how about you guys?
Ted?
Yeah, I think Derek nailed it with a 6. 6 is pretty fair because it's not going to see play a ton. You know, I will admit I haven't. Again, it's always the cards that I look at where I'm like, I want to put you in the. I just stare at it like, okay, but then what heroes but as far as theme goes, very thematic card, and like you said, very fun and satisfying. I can imagine. So I think I got something in the works now.
Awesome.
I think to give it a go. So it can be very, very powerful and turn the tide of a game by taking out an extra enemy.
Yeah, I think it's surprising when it comes out for the encounter deck. If the encounter deck were a person, they'd be like, "Oh, like what is this thing?" Which is pretty cool. But I think the best word that I've heard used to describe this is gimmicky. So I think I'm gonna give it an 8 with Grant. I think I have to agree with Grant. Ted, what did you end up? What was your number?
I'll give it a 6. I agree with Derek.
Oh, jeez. You know what? Ted, your job as the new guy is to figure out how to use this card in a deck and then go play it.
I will.
That's going to be.
I will.
That's your job.
I'll put that deck together.
Right.
I think the Dunedain Hobbit pairing will be perfect to really get this card.
Yep. Get all those spirit Dunedains out there.
Well,
okay. I'll give you a little. I'll let you go, but Derek, we're so glad that you decided to come on the show. If at any point you ever want to reach back out to an audience, you and all your hosts on the Great Company always have an open invitation here at Card Talk to come on and talk about anything you want. Doesn't have to be a card. You can do whatever you want on our show. We'll turn the reins over to you guys. So, anyways, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a real treat to chat with you guys, and again, thanks for your support.
Yeah,
absolutely. It was a pleasure, and thanks again for your contribution with the Great Company and just having that as a resource for new and existing players. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
No, you're welcome. We're happy to do it. We had a lot of fun.
Okay, everybody, join us next time as we talk about more cards from the game. Have a great night. And if you're interested in finding this or any of our back episodes of Card Talk, feel free to search YouTube where you can find our flagship video episodes with the username CardTalk2018. Or you can search the RSS feed cardtalk2018.libsyn.org for our extended audio versions of our podcast. Or you can find us on Facebook at CardTalk2018. And if you have any questions for Grant or myself or for both of us, feel free to email us at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.